Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings and Yahoo for Friday, May the 31st. We got a full Friday night slate, a full 15-gamer, every team in action. Because it's a 15-game slate, to no surprise, there are a ton of good pitching options today. Patrick Corbin, most expensive pitcher at $11,200. He leads off the player pool. Then you have like Chris Sale, Kenta Maeda, Brad Peacock, Caleb Smith. A lot of good options today. There's even some good value that I like. There's good cheap options down here that we'll talk about that we can pair with our expensive pitchers. There's a lot of ways you can go at pitcher, same with the bats as well. Looking at some of the team totals today, obviously the one that's going to stand out the most is in Coors Field. The Rockies right now have a 7.2 implied run total, which is the highest on the slate by far. So we're going to want to get in some Rockies bats versus Edwin Jackson. That's definitely going to be a spot we want to go to. There's a game in Texas, Danny Duffy and Ariel Gerardo pitching today. I think both teams here could be in play for bats. You have like the Indians with a 5.2 total against Dylan Covey. Even some like teams with maybe not as high totals but still give you upside. Like the Red Sox, I think, give you upside versus J.A. Happ. I think you can get some upside from the Braves versus Spencer Turnbull. 84-degree heat in Atlanta, 39% humidity, winds blowing out to center. Pretty good hitting conditions there. Even like the Nationals against Tyler Mahle. Just so many good hitting spots. We'll be sure to cover all those once we go over the stacks. We'll look at some BVP plays at the end of the video. But let's go ahead and start off with pitcher. Work our way through the pitcher player pool. Then I'll give my 3 hitters. Then, like I said, stacks. And then we'll do BVP. So starting off at the top of the pitcher player pool with Patrick Corbin. He's the most expensive option on DraftKings at $11,200. On Yahoo, Chris Sale is actually the most expensive option. He is $53, whereas Corbin is $51. Just looking at DraftKings and starting off there first, I really don't have that much interest in Corbin at his price tag. And because I want to really fit in some expensive bats, especially the Rockies, I want to get in as many Rockies hitters as I can into my lineups. For that reason, I'm not going to be going all the way up to Corbin on DraftKings. I think there's some plays in this 9K range that give you just as much upside. Like Caleb Smith against the Padres, I think it's a very good play at $9,700. Herman Marquez against the Blue Jays, even though it's in Coors, still a great matchup there, $9,500. The one that really stands out to me, though, is Trevor Bauer at $9,200. I really like Trevor Bauer today. I'm hoping, because it's a 15-game slate, that he kind of goes overlooked, and maybe his ownership isn't as high as it should be. But Trevor Bauer is such a talented pitcher that I'm just going to rely on his talent here. I know he hasn't been good lately, and that is definitely a concern, but it's just such a good matchup for him against a White Sox team that strikes out a ton versus right-handed pitching. We look at their projected total and their lineup for tomorrow. Their lineup is a lineup that has a lot of strikeouts in it. They're expected to roll out at least like 4 or 5 righties as well, which is very good for Bauer. He is very good versus righties. Pretty low total for the White Sox as well, just a 4 implied run total. I think Bauer has a ton of upside here. And because he hasn't been very good lately, hopefully that keeps his ownership down. Bauer is still one of the best pitchers in the league, in my opinion. Has double-digit K upside anytime he steps on the mound. So I really like going to him at $9,200. But if we go over to Yahoo and look at their pitcher pricing, Bauer is way up there. He's at $49, where you have like Corbin at $51, Sale at $53. Then guys like Caleb Smith, Herman Marquez, Jose Barrios. The pitcher pricing on Yahoo, they're pretty tight. Like all the guys are kind of priced similarly. So for that reason, I think I'm going to be rolling the dice on Patrick Corbin on Yahoo because he's just so closely priced to Trevor Bauer that I think Corbin's just the better play. But on DraftKings, where Bauer is $2,000 cheaper than Corbin, I'll take the savings and play a guy like Bauer who has just as much upside. But on Yahoo, where it's just a $2 difference, I think the $2 difference isn't enough for me to want to play Bauer over Corbin. I think Corbin, the better play on Yahoo. And then going back over to DraftKings and looking at some of the other pitchers we could target today, Joey Lucchesi is a guy that I like a ton at $8,800. His price on DraftKings is not the most appealing, but I'm still going to have him in some of my lineups, even at $8,800. But on Yahoo, where he's all the way down here at $39, I think he actually makes for a great pairing with Patrick Corbin. You can play Corbin and Lucchesi together, and you're still left with an average of $13 remaining per player, which can easily be worked around. So I'm going to be using Lucchesi a ton as an SP2 on Yahoo. Even in some lineups where I go with expensive bats, he might actually be my SP1. On DraftKings, it's pretty hard to play Lucchesi with a guy like Bauer. Like if you put Lucchesi in there, you're left with 4K remaining per player, which you can work around, but on a slate where we want to get in those expensive Coors bats, 4K remaining per player after you put your pitchers in might not be good enough, so we might need to try and find some better value or some just cheap value on DraftKings. And we will talk about that cheap value in a second, but before we get there, looking at some of these other mid-tier plays, Mike Foltynewicz I like a lot here at home against the Tigers. It's a Tigers team that strikes out a ton versus right-handed pitching. Folty looked really good in his last start against the Cardinals. I think he keeps that up here. Low total for the Tigers right now as I'm recording this video. 3.7 implied run total. Even in 84-degree temperatures, wind blowing out, the Tigers still have a pretty low total. So I think Mike Foltynewicz makes a lot of sense today at 8,500 on DK. Then going to the value, this is where I think we find a couple of good options that we can target. So this San Francisco Giants and Baltimore Orioles game, I think is a game that I'm actually going to be looking to target the pitchers. Drew Pomeranz and Andrew Cashner are both dirt cheap on DraftKings. And I know that both guys are not good pitchers. You don't have to tell me that. I know Cashner's not good. I know Pomeranz isn't good. But neither are these lineups. Orioles lineup is pretty bad. Giants lineup is very bad as well. So I think both pitchers are in play here. I really like Cashner at 6,600 at home against the Giants. Like I said, it's a Giants lineup that's just not very good. I've played worse pitchers this year against the Giants. I'm going to continue to play pitchers against the Giants all year because it's just such a bad lineup. And Cashner this year actually hasn't been as bad as he has been in past years, especially for fantasy. Like, you look at the game log's really not that bad. He's given you actually some pretty good starts this year, like 24 DraftKings points against the White Sox, 18 DK points against the Red Sox, 19 DK points against the Yankees. Cashner has shown the ability to get strikeouts as well. 8K game against the White Sox, 7Ks against the Yankees. It's a Giants team that does have some strikeouts in its lineup. I could easily see Cashner going 6 innings, maybe allowing a couple runs, but getting like 6 or 7 strikeouts, giving you 15, 20 DraftKings points, and being a good value pitcher at 6,600. So I actually like him quite a bit, pairing him with Trevor Bauer. You pair those two guys together, and you're left with about 4,300 remaining per player, which you should be able to work around. Looking at some of those Rockies hitters, they're about that price range, like Tapia and Dahl are 4,700, 4,600. Daniel Murphy's like 4,800. If Ryan McMahon's in the lineup, I think he's like 4,600. So those are some guys you can look to. Might be hard to get Arenado and Story in there, but some of the other hitters are reasonably priced, and we'll talk about them when we get to our 3 bats. But as a value pitcher, really like Andrew Cashner today, and I think Drew Pomeranz at 6K is also in play as well against the Orioles. It's an Orioles lineup that's just not that good, very bad versus left-handed pitching, strikes out a ton. I know Pomeranz has been terrible this year, but Orioles are also a pretty bad lineup, so one's got to give here. Either Pomeranz is going to just continue to suck, or the Orioles are just going to continue to be a bad team, and Pomeranz is going to be able to have some success here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out there and gives you like 15, 20 DraftKings points. Pomeranz is not a complete gas can. He's not a great pitcher, but he's not like terrible either. He can go out there and have some success against a bad team like the Orioles. And where he's dirt cheap on DraftKings at 6K, he is going to be a guy that I have in my player pool as a value pitcher. Then I guess the last guy I want to mention is Julio Teheran. Teheran's only 5,300 on DraftKings. Teheran's another guy that hasn't been that good this year, but this is a Pirates team that rolls out a lot of righties. They're only expect to have 4 lefties in their lineup, I believe. Depending on what their lineup is, if they have a lot of lefties, that might get me off of Teheran, but if they roll out a lineup with a lot of righties in it, I think Teheran is definitely in play at 5,300. He's so cheap on DraftKings that he just makes sense as a value pitcher. The Pirates are not the best hitting team. Like, they have really good hitters in Marte and Polanco and Josh Bell, but other than that, there are some easy outs in this lineup. It's a really good pitcher's park as well. So Teheran at 5,300 I think is actually playable today. He at least has upside. Like, he's gone for 20-plus DraftKings points this year. He went against the Reds and got 20 DK points. He's usually a guy that doesn't give you a ton of upside, but at 5,300 you don't really need that much upside at that price tag. So he's another guy that I'll have in my player pool as a cheap value option. But that's probably all that I'm going to for pitcher today. Let's go ahead and talk about some hitters now. So I mentioned the Rockies. They're a team that I want to hit on first. 7.2 implied run total for the Rockies versus Edwin Jackson. It's hard for me to not have a ton of Rockies bats today. They're just in such a good spot. Edwin Jackson is such a bad pitcher, and now he has to pitch in Coors Field where it's expected to be 76 degrees with a little bit of humidity, pretty good hitting weather. I want to start off with David Dahl at 4,700 on DraftKings. He is also a very good play on Yahoo. On Yahoo, I believe he's $17 or $16, I think. I think Tapia is 16. Dahl is 17. Love Dahl here versus Edwin Jackson. He's a little bit cheaper than some of the other stud hitters from the Rockies like Arenado and Story. Obviously, Arenado and Story are great plays, but they are also 58 and 5,900, whereas Dahl is only 4,700. He is a guy that gives you a ton of power versus righties. Edwin Jackson will give up home runs pretty much to both sides of the plate, lefties and righties. Dahl's been hitting the ball well lately. I believe he did have a homer on Thursday in their day game. Been hitting the ball well lately, been seeing the ball well. Really like him at 4,700 on DraftKings. I think he remains underpriced, especially for this matchup versus Jackson. And then we're going to talk about two more Rockies. All my three hitters are going to be from the Rockies. That's kind of how much I like him today. Daniel Murphy at 4,800 on DraftKings, I like a ton. He's really nicely priced on Yahoo. He's only $15 over here. Makes for a great play. Like, you look at some of the guys priced around him, Brandon Belt, Albert Pujols, Daniel Vogelbach. I will definitely take Murphy over all those guys. I think Murphy is way too cheap at 15 on Yahoo. And even 4,800 on DraftKings, I think that's too cheap of a price tag. Murphy's another guy that's just a really good hitter. Hasn't shown a ton of power this year, just 3 homers on the year, but he's a guy that's going to make contact. And Edwin Jackson's not a pitcher that's going to get strikeouts, going to pitch in the zone, so he's going to allow guys like Murphy, Dahl to put the bat on the ball. And when these guys do hit it, they can hit it over the fence. Even though Murphy doesn't have a ton of homers this year, he's still got a little bit of power in his bat, I believe. So I like him a lot as well at 4,800. And then hopefully Ryan McMahon is in the lineup. If Ryan McMahon is, I really like him on both sides. He's 4,700 on DraftKings and on Yahoo. He's another play that's dirt cheap, only $12 on Yahoo. Makes for a great play, in my opinion, at his price tag. So there is a chance, I guess, that Brendan Rodgers could be in the lineup. But I think they're probably just going to play Brendan Rodgers versus a lefty. Whenever a lefty's on the mound, and then whenever there's a righty, it's going to be McMahon getting the start. We'll see if that's the case here. Assuming McMahon does start, if he doesn't, you can just put Brendan Rodgers in there at the same price tag, or even a little bit cheaper. But McMahon is another guy that does have some power versus righties. I believe he did hit a homer on Thursday as well. Batting in the middle of this Rockies lineup that has a 7.2 implied run total, it's hard for me to not like him at 4,700. Edwin Jackson is just that bad of a pitcher that I'm going to be loading up on the Rockies. I'm going to have a ton of Rocky stacks today. They're going to be by far my highest owned stack on the slate. Just love them here versus Jackson. High total, it's hard to not like them. But these are my 5 plays for today, guys. 5 plays for DraftKings and for Yahoo. Now let's go ahead and talk about some stacks before we move on to BVP and in the video. So I've mentioned it multiple times. The Rockies are my favorite stack on the slate, not even close. 7.2 implied run total versus Edwin Jackson. Hard to not like Rockies bats here versus him. But looking at some of the other teams that we could target on this slate, I think the Indians versus Dylan Covey makes some sense. 5.2 implied run total for them. I like both sides of this Rangers and Royals game. I prefer the Royals versus Ariel Jurado. Guys like Nicky Lopez, Whit Merrifield, Alberto Mondesi, I think are really good plays. The Royals are actually pretty expensive though. Like, they have 4 hitters all over 5K. But like Nicky Lopez leading off at 3,700 is going to make for a great value. Jorge Soler at 4,500. Ryan O'Hearn at 3,400. Those are some value plays that you can consider from the Royals. But if you can, you're going to want to try and fit Whit Merrifield, Alberto Mondesi. You definitely want to try and fit those 2 guys into your stacks. But other teams that we could potentially consider, looking at some of the other totals today, I do like some Red Sox bats versus J.A. Happ. Pretty good hitting weather in Yankee Stadium on Friday. Winds blowing out to center, only 4 miles per hour, so I doubt that really makes a difference. But some of these Red Sox bats are very cheap versus Happ. Like, even Benintendi, I know it's lefty on lefty, but he's 4,300. Pretty sure the Red Sox were priced like they were facing a different pitcher, not facing J.A. Happ, because that game got postponed. Same can be said for the Yankees. I think they were priced to face a different pitcher, so they're also dirt cheap. Don't really want to play them versus Chris Sale, but some of these Red Sox bats like JD and Mookie under 5K versus a lefty and J.A. Happ who has really struggled this year, I think those guys make for pretty good plays today if you want to target them. But I think that's it for the stacks that I'm going to be going to today. Let's go ahead and talk about some BVP now before we end the video. So there are a ton of BVP plays today. I'm just going to cover the ones that really stand out to me. If you do want to look at all of these, you can pause the video here. But starting off with Steve Pearce, he's gone 11 for 35 with 6 home runs. off of J. Happ. He has really hit him well. Kendrick Morales, 11 for 41 with 3 home runs off of Chris Sale. Buster Posey, 12 for 31 with 2 home runs off Andrew Kashner. Yoan Moncada has gone 6 for 15 with 2 home runs off of Trevor Bauer. Jonathan Lucroy, 21 for 50 with 2 home runs off of Mike Leake. Andrew McCutchen, 3 for 11, 2 home runs off Kenta Maeda. And then down here at the bottom, Kyle Seager, 8 for 24 with 2 home runs off of Tyler Skaggs. So those are just some BVP plays that I got for today. Like I said, if you want to look at all these, feel free to pause the video here and look at all of them. But I think that's it for the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this video, and hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed, make sure you click that like button down below before you get out of here. I would really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Or like always, you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT if you do have any questions. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you checking out the video. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.